This group actually was from my neighborhood in Inwood.
Oh.
The Clancy brothers and Tommy Makem, if you remember them. They're singing a Christmas carol called the Cherry Tree Carol, which is where the baby Jesus talks out of his mother's womb about getting, and Joseph can't have any cherries because he's not part of it. It's not happy. But I thought I'd talk about a couple. We have to play the Clancy brothers every Christmas when my elderly children come to my house. Yeah, oldest will be 60. Next one just turns 58 Wednesday, and they insist on this. The others I didn't. They had Joan Baez, Jim Neighbors, and Bing Crosby. So we're going to go to the most famous Christmas carol of all. What do you think? Silent Night. All right. But this is like a Victorian German Christmas. Christmas got here from Germany through England when Victoria was queen, and Albert, a German, was president. This is what we think of when we think of Victorian Christmas, kids opening presents and so forth. This one, oops, what happened to him? What do I hit here, Jack?
I don't know. It should work. You go back? No. Nope. I don't know what you're hitting.
I don't know what I'm hitting here. I'm having a bad night. This is Silent Night, Franz Gruber.
Did it play before? There you go.
It's in Germany. And nobody's really sure how this happened. Franz Gruber said the organ was broken. So he wrote this to be accompanied on his guitar. I think it sounded something like this. I believe if you want to do it today, you do not have to pay a royalty on this if you use the original arrangement from 1500 whatever. And I kind of think it sounded like that. This guy's Freddie Quinn, who's an Irish German. And later on, you'll see my grandfather was a bass soloist in the army. And on Christmas Eve, on the Western Front, this is what he was singing. I never heard him sing because he was killed 2 months later. I bet he would make them a little unknown. Anyway, you can see how it's written. We all sing at Christmas Eve. There are 2 more Christmas carols that nobody sings because you can't translate them. But this, we're not sure that's the accurate story, whether he actually broke the strap on the organ because he wanted to sing this or whatever. And when the monk talked to the priest, anyway. So the title of this presentation is Christmas Ago, and I'm hoping to just generate memories. The public is not too interested in this, I'm sure, because they all know it. But there is a picture of the German version. That is not Santa Claus. That's the Weihnachtsmann, the Christmas man. Germans celebrate on December 7th, St. Nicholas Day. And again, our tradition is, we'll talk a little more later, the Holy Night is Christmas Eve. It's called, as a matter of fact, Heilige Abend, Holy Night. And you gather, and we'll talk more about that, how it got to America. But the most interesting thing is Irving Berlin wrote White Christmas.
Isn't that amazing?
Wait, it gets better. And that's something you absolutely, and jump in, anybody. Yeah, Irving Berlin, whose name was not Irving, I don't quite remember what it was, wrote White Christmas, a Jewish gentleman who started out in the slums from Russia, places. And this is Mel Torme, another Jewish composer who wrote Chestnuts Roasting by the Open Fire. But the origin of Christmas is really up in the air. Actually, it originated in Rome. If you remember, the Christians were in Rome being persecuted. So the idea, the story you always hear, they had a holiday Christmas by celebrating in December Saturnalia, so it would be another holiday. Actually, it thinks Jesus was born in March, if so. And they chose it because this date, December 25th, 336, is the first Christmas. The date was chosen because 9 months after the Annunciation, when Mary was told she was carrying Christ in the womb. And it's also the date of the spring equinox, by the way. But Saturnalia was an ancient Roman festival. The god Saturn, obviously, because of when the holiday occurred near the winter solstice. Sir, this is all I've got. Sit closer because I'll try to project more, but since they broke the microphone in there, yeah, I found it in pieces. Raise your hand, man. Raise your hand. I don't care. Yeah, there would be that too. And you don't have your hearing aids in. I got mine. 3 days worth. So I'll try to project, but this is with the cold and stuff. And you'll see Thea's back at the house. She's not feeling well. So she's got it now. All right. Ray is parking cars. I appreciate you coming in.
Thank you.
It's nice to share this stuff. And, otherwise it goes bye-bye. Anyway, they were honoring Santa. That's perfect. Welcome, Sally. Welcome, Betty. Frank, if you can move closer, feel free. You good? No, I do not.
Because he moved to California.
Hmm.
And when he moved out there, everything was sunny and bright. And he came from the East Coast north. So he was used to a white Christmas. And therefore the song. And at the time that he wrote it, World War II.
Yep.
And a lot of it was very sentimental because the men were at war. And they were dreaming of a white Christmas.
He was in war too. He was in the army.
Yeah.
And so in our family, you have to watch White Christmas. It's a Wonderful Life. What's the other one?
Holiday Inn.
Holiday Inn. You got it.
And Snoopy. Let's not forget Snoopy.
And we watch Home Alone. So, but anyway, Rome, they were persecuting Christians. So that's when it started until Constantine the Great started Christianity as an acceptable thing to. So what about gifts? Where did the tradition of giving gifts come from? Ask that question. People do different things with gifts, in some cultures, it's got to be a one homemade gift. You have to make the gift and give it to the person. Or there are these kind of, the new gifts are funny, like a handful of rubber chickens. Or you'll love the one on the far right, the musical toilet paper roll. So when you pull the paper down, it plays White Christmas. And this one says that my kids laugh because they think I'm crazy. I laugh because they don't. What's that say?
They don't know it's hereditary.
Right? You got it. So some of the gifts. Now we go back when we were kids. Remember the wishing book? Who remembers the wishing book? Sears Roebuck and Montgomery Ward. Yeah, Sears. Well, there was two. We had Monkey Ward or Sears. And what was the destination of the Sears catalog? It was the outhouse. Oh, yeah. Before toilet paper. Before toilet paper. So you'd go down to the outhouse, and it was cold. It was cold. We had them in the summer. You take the book, and you tear a page off, read it, and then use it. So, but they always had the Christmas presents. You could get a toy car.
Oh, Jim.
Yeah, well, we're not going to go there. I wanted a catcher's mitt. I wanted a catcher's mitt so badly, a Yogi Berra model. And I saved all my money for the catcher's mitt. And they sent me a Mickey Cochrane model. He's the guy who dropped the third strike in the World Series. I think I have the glove somewhere still, but it was $8 and I had to save $4 for my allowance before you could get it. Who has a $4 allowance? But I found some other. This is the wishing book Sears, but I found some unique presents you might like to revisit. Here's one. You can build yourself a mountain of muscle, giant power, $18. And then of course there's the trust for those of you with the bad back. And I like this next one. The pistol. You get a revolver. And I like the gravestone. I always wondered how that got delivered. And then there's bust cream. The ladies who want to enlarge their what? What? Gravestones or bust cream?
Revolvers.
Yeah. What the weird part about this is I was doing a production of West Side Story and I needed a starter's pistol. In New Jersey, I could not get one without a gun permit. And basically, a starter's pistol has no firing anything. It's flat on the end, but it can hurt you if it's not. So I rode away to a veterinarian supply. $9.98 later, I had my starter's pistol, which we own.
They started way before.
What's that?
Gift giving started way before.
Wait, yeah.
Oh, okay.
You're getting that just today. And then we have stuff like this, which is, what is that? German Christmas traditions. Gift giving is different in different cultures, but you know what it goes to? It's the three wise men.
Yeah.
And I have been to the grave of the three wise men. Guess where? Germany. In Cologne, there's caskets supposedly of the three wise men. It's all gold and people line up to see it. But they brought the first three gifts to the baby Jesus. And so that got translated into many other customs. Now, some places you only get one gift and make sure it's a pair of socks. That's something useful. You couldn't have, or you made something. And this is a German tradition that this was a lady who was a governess and was the guy, Dr. Darlington, is the health commissioner of New York from 1904 to 1910. And she was the bane of my existence when she stayed with us. She was a Victorian governess, German Victorian governess. But if you look on the left, there's a little girl dressed up as an angel. And in my family, that's the Christ Kindle, like Christ Kindle mark. What you had to do as a girl is get dressed up as an angel, go out and to a poor family, clean their house and bring them food before you could get your present. And you wore the angel wings, by the way. You wore the wings and you were Christ Kindle as a Christ's angel or Christ's baby. So that's a Christmas card with it on. And you'll also notice, you look at the Christmas tree, German Christmas trees to this day have real candles. You light once Christmas Eve. And I have a cousin who actually saw that. And Christmas Eve is the day in German households for just your immediate family, mother, father, sister, brother. The next day, Christmas Day, is for extended family, aunt, uncle, and Uncle Fritz. And then the day after that is extended family and friends. And you celebrate for a good 4 or 5 days. Why not? So this is the Weihnachtsstadt Stuttgart. This is the Christmas market in Stuttgart. We now have them here in Augusta, and in Pennsylvania. This thing, Thea and I went to it for 2 days. 2 days. My cousin lives outside of that, a cousin of mine. She's a piece of work. Her husband, they said, you go to Stuttgart. It's the best one there, not Nuremberg. Okay. So we visited 3 of them, and we hadn't gone more than 4 or 5 miles. And this thing, well, the big feature is blue wine. It's called blue wine. It's made out of cheap red wine, heated up, and I usually throw a quart of brandy into it. And it keeps you warm. And the other thing was steckelfish. These are fish that are grilled on a stick with a big barrel with a hole in the middle, and you stand at the edge of the barrel, push the bones in. And it was an amazing event to see, and you buy all your Christmas stuff there. This is when our house had burned down that summer, and Thea said, no more Christmas for us. Well, didn't count on our church. Each person had an ornament that they felt meant something to them. So pastor got them together, put it in a bag, and gave it to her in choir. See, it became a puddle quite quickly. And each one was the meaning with a note. So she said, well, I guess we don't have any ornaments. Where can we buy them? I said, Germany. So we went back to Germany to my cousins, and who I just saw recently too. And then in the spring, just to make it worse, she said, I want those lacy curtains that, well, you can't buy them. And she wanted tablecloths. So we go to Bavaria. Their German is just strange. So it's quite the event. But we came home, found the material in Westchester, and she made the curtains that are hanging there now from that time. Those are traditional, you know. So there's always a story. And I just wrote to a former student who's so bitter he doesn't want to celebrate. He said, you try to remember the good memories, not the bad ones. This was Christmas 1944, Bronx, New York. And my Uncle Carl, my godfather, you see the picture in the top right, was in Naples, Italy, fighting against the Germans. His people, where my grandfather was killed by the French, and he was fighting the Germans with the French. And my grandmother put the tree up, as you can see, always the same corner, always the same tree. And if you look at the apartment building, second floor, that's where Santa Claus came in. You didn't know that? My Uncle Carl would go out to get bread or something, and then ho, 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 he'd come. Well, the problem was in 1944, he was in Italy. What are we going to do? My Aunt Julie puts on the outfit, except the boots were half boots. So my cousin Bruce said, he's wearing nylons. But to tell you how much this meant, Bruce came in from Hawaii. He's 88 now, and we were very close. His dad played Santa Claus and all. So we went, actually, the last thing we did with his father before he died was we visited that building in the Bronx. All of us who'd been there. We're jumping up and down, and it was quite the end. Uncle Carl said to me, that was the best day he had in his life. So he was a big emotional. Now, what about leaving food for reindeer? Did anybody leave the reindeer food? Oh, we did. Question was cookies or carrots, or both. Carrots, yeah. And then this was what would happen? You'd go to bed. German people would go to church. And then when you came home, you would have what they call Bescherung, which is the sharing, not the giving, but the sharing. And then you went to bed. And miraculously, the next morning, Santa Claus brought that tree and it was up. So I knew there was a Santa Claus. So I still think so. And this is the tradition of the Christmas pickle. The pickle, it's a German thing. You hide it in the tree. Whoever finds it gets an extra present. And then, of course, the other piece to it is eating. And the tradition of our family, and since the kids are about, 40 years or so, is that Thea makes a Stollen. We get Lebkuchen. And if they don't get Christmas Eve, the same meal every year, well, where did that go? So she's fish, shrimp, something called Leberkäse, and all the cold cuts. So you know Leberkäse.
Yeah, it's a cheese, right?
Right?
It's like a cheese, isn't it?
Oh.
What is it?
Leberkäse is a meatloaf.
Oh, okay.
Tastes
I've had it
like-
before because we used to go to Zoom Stammtisch
Okay.
in Queens, and they have it there.
Queens.
Yeah.
Goodness.
Yeah, Middle Village is where that is.
It's another Queens.
Middle Village. That's where Zoom Stammtisch is. If you've never been there, it's really good.
No, I was born and raised in Jamaica.
Oh, okay.
See? Well, the thing is, the most interesting thing about it is if you go to the Alpine Deli in Blairstown, you can get all this stuff and they make it in-house. So they have to have, are you ready? Lox Schinken, which means lox ham, Westfälische Schinken, Westphalian ham, Gelbwurst, which is yellow wurst, Leberkäse, and my younger son likes butter cheese, butterkäse. It smells like feet, it's just awful. And then Thea puts it all on the table, and it has to be that way. The next day, we go to my daughter-in-law's now, not to our house. So, but the cake is, now this is a Weihnachts 1918, and you see the candles lit, so you know it's Christmas Eve. And that looks very much like what they look like today. In fact, that looks like my cousin's living room today. Oh, she's a piece of work. To show you the difference in cultures, she had two daughters. The oldest daughter was a banker, she's a vice president of Deutsche Bank. She went for a PhD in Heidelberg. The younger daughter is an MD. She got a PhD in research. See, that's boring. And then she got her MD. And I said, what'd that cost you? In Germany, it's free. So
Must be nice.
this is where did the Christmas trees come from? Well, Prince Albert brought them from Germany. But why a tree? Because a tree had been a religious object. And for many years, our family went out and cut the tree ourselves. There's a magnificent tree farm down here in White Township, 22 acres of different trees. And we go cut one, then you go have lunch, and then you go to the winery, you make a day out of it. But Albert brought it to, and all the children, now, Queen Victoria had 9 children. And so they have that, and then of course that came to America with 2 different cultures. The Art Deco version looked something like this. Remember those old-fashioned Christmas cards, Art Deco. But how do you get a Christmas tree if you're in New York City? Good question, right? Is that in my earphone?
Outside.
Thank God. I thought it was, my head or something.
No, you're good.
All right. In the turn of the century, the Christmas tree, which was introduced by Martin Luther, 1500, that's what kind of looked like in New York City. Now, what would happen is they bring these trees into New York. This is turn of the century. They're cut in August in Canada and brought in. So by the second week, you've got pine needles everywhere. And then my mother loved tinsel. So just picture the tinsel and the pine needles all over the floor. You boys, you knock down the... However, how do we go shopping in my neighborhood for a Christmas tree? This is actually my neighborhood, Inwood, where the trees would be out. We'd always go out Christmas Eve because they were cheaper. And I have a friend, they had no money. The father would take the little boy out and tell the little boy, look at the trees, break a branch off. And then he'd tell the man, well, that one's broken. I should get it cheaper. And then again, but they were lined up down Dyckman Street, smelled great. And then you would take it home in our family later on and decorate it with popcorn strings, balls, popcorn balls, candy canes. We still do. And of course, the Charlie Brown Christmas tree over there. Remember these?
Yes. Love bubble lights.
You can still get.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, I'm surprised actually.
The only problem is their series. So if one goes out,
yeah.
they all go out. You're running around.
Yeah.
My mother got all bent out of shape over that. And this was, and I wish my voice was better tonight. This is what city Christmases look like, the Christmas tree, the trains. Anybody have trains under the tree? My wife's broke. Thea had trains under her tree. She's into trains. What can I tell you, right?
Oh.
I sold mine. And I found out they were only from 1938. So let's take a look at this figure. Santa Claus, also known as Saint Nick, Sinterklaas, Saint Nicholas. He's interesting because his American origin is in the middle, and that's Morristown, New Jersey. He was born by the artist Thomas Nast. Thomas Nast lived across from McCullough Hall, and it's privately owned now. But People in the museum had no clue that he's the one. And by the way, Santa Claus, Thomas Nast, is a Civil War veteran.
Hmm.
You know, Santa fought in the Civil War. Huh? And then, of course, this is one of my favorites. Do you remember? Yes, Virginia, there is a Santa Claus.
Yep.
That's coming up next performance. It was in the New York Sun. Yes, Virginia, there is a Santa Claus. A little girl wrote in. I don't think it would affect the view as much as it did me. I was the only little Lutheran boy in an all-Jewish class in 1947 in Inwood after the war. And my classmates, less than kind, I would get up for religious instruction, and they said, don't you know, Santa Claus, Jesus, and the Easter Bunny are all fictional. I didn't handle it well. Let's put it that way. Where'd I get in trouble? So I hit a kid. This is Thomas Nast with his version of Santa Claus, and it was a Harper's Weekly cover and centerfold of the family sacrifice of the Union during the Civil War. That's how old Santa is. Jolly old Saint Nick, and you got to wonder why it's jolly. And this is what we all envision, right? But in an apartment in New York, looking out over the air shaft, how do you keep that? I always wanted that. And I thought Santa Claus came down the fire escape. Right? Daisy, we knew that. We just knew that. And then this is Clement Clark Moore. I'm going to try to read this horse as I am. He was a scholar who wrote The Night Before Christmas. And I like the illustration, so don't mind my voice. It was the night before Christmas when all through the house not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse. The stockings were hung by the chimney with care and hopes that St. Nicholas soon would be there. The children were nestled all snug in their beds while visions of sugar plums danced in their heads. And Mama in her kerchief and I in my cap had just settled our brains for a long winter's nap. When out on the lawn there arose such a clatter, I sprang from the bed to see what was the matter. Away in the window I flew like a flash, tore open the shutters, and threw up the sash. The moon on the breast of the new fallen snow gave the luster of midday to objects below. When what to my wondering eyes should appear but a miniature sleigh and 8 tiny reindeer. With a little old driver so lively and quick, I knew in a moment it must be St. Nick. More rapid than eagles his courses they came, and he whistled and shouted and called them by name. Now Dasher, now Dancer, now Prancer and Vixen, on Comet, on Cupid, on Dunder and Blitzen. To the top of the porch, to the top of the wall, now dash away, dash away, dash away all. As dry leaves that before the wild hurricane fly, when they meet with an obstacle, mount to the sky. So up to the housetop horses they flew, with a sleigh full of toys, and St. Nicholas too. And then in a twinkling I heard on the roof the prancing and pawing of each little hoof as I drew in my head and was turning around. Down the chimney St. Nicholas came with a bound. He was dressed all in fur from his head to his foot, and his clothes were all tarnished with ashes and soot. A bundle of toys he had flung on his back, and he looked like a peddler just opening his pack. His eyes, how they twinkled, his dimples, how merry, his cheeks were like roses, his nose like a cherry. His droll little mouth was drawn up like a bow, and the beard on his chin was as white as the snow. The stump of a pipe he held tight in his teeth, and the smoke, it encircled his head like a wreath. He had a broad face and a little round belly that shook when he laughed like a bowl full of jelly. He was chubby and plump, a right jolly old elf, and I laughed when I saw him in spite of myself. A wink of his eye and a twist of his head soon gave me to know I had nothing to dread. He spoke not a word, but went straight to his work and filled all the stockings, then turned with a jerk, and laying his finger aside of his nose, and giving a nod, up the chimney he rose. He sprang to his sleigh, to his team gave a whistle, and away they all flew like the down of a thistle. And I heard him exclaim as he drove out of sight, Happy Christmas to all, and to all a good night. So, well, we read that every Christmas. And Dad, consider staying. May he rest in peace. This is Christmas 1914 at the World War I battle site. I don't know if you've all heard the story of the soldiers on Christmas laying down their guns. The way it happened, and how do I know? They claim it never happened until they found letters about 3 years ago describing it. And they heard one soldier in German singing Silent Night. And then an English voice joined him. They turned their guns upside down, put them on the snow, and then they went next day and exchanged presents, played soccer, whatever. The next day went back to shooting each other. Well, my grandpa, there's the little tree with they call it. This is my grandfather on the far left, and this is him on the far right. He was commissioned by the German army to write a Christmas pageant for the French widows and children and direct it and sing. He was a fine bass singer. And if you look behind him, that's what's left of the trees. And he did. He was a staff sergeant, and that was a problem. He was to be promoted, and he had a fight with the captain. He wanted to go home on leave. They said, there's your choice. Either get promoted or go home. He chose to go home. And on February, I guess, he was due to go home. The night before, he sang a song, drank the brandy they sent. He said, we don't know if we're going to have it tomorrow. And as a staff sergeant, led his troops into a crater. 120 men were killed inside of 20 minutes, including him leading the pack with his sword. Had he stayed a staff sergeant, he would have been behind them all. But anyway, the papers and all said that the German soldiers were bayoneting babies, mistreating. None of it's true. And I got that from his letters. Now, let's fast forward to 1944. There is his son, my Uncle Carl, from the 755th Medium Tank Battalion, Company C, in Italy in 1944. He came in on his birthday, November 12th, to the Apennine Mountains in Italy and was put in the tank, medium tank corps, going up the right-hand side of Italy. And when he got there, this is the Apennine Mountains in Italy. Anzio's on the other side of the peninsula. And you can see what this looked like. Well, anyway, comes Christmas. There is an awful ice storm and snowstorm. And the tanks are bogged down. He had a drunken company commander. And they found this place. And you see the little cottage there? It's a deserted farmhouse. So this is Christmas Eve, and he writes the story. And they went inside. The guys are throwing snowballs at each other. They made a Christmas tree with their dog tags as decorations, and they're carrying on. And he said, about 11 o'clock, there's a knock on the door. And there's a farmer whose house it was with his pregnant wife. No room any place for us. So he said, oh, so all the men took him in, put him in the back bedroom, made him comfortable. And a corpsman, they heard the baby cry at midnight. He said, you never saw so many guys on their knees at that point because it was so spooky Christmas Eve. He said it brought him back to reality. And this is what it looked like there, the Christmas in Italy. And there's Uncle Carl in the middle. And at this experience, his best friend was killed. And when he came home, he visited all the wounded and dead. And his best friend had been married for 2 weeks. Uncle Carl visited his wife, and they were married later for 60 years. Aunt Sibylla. Don't mention Germany to her when she was alive. So that's the end of it. You got any stories? Hit me. It's kind of personal. I hope you enjoyed it.